Crissy, I am so excited to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor and a treat always to sit down with you.
Oh, well, I am so excited to have this conversation. So, you and I have known each other for a little while, just a little bit, but I've really started seeing you. What I do know about you is that you're up to just so many amazing things. And we want to hear all about it. We want to hear your story. So, for those who might be meeting you for the first time, tell us, who is Crissy?
Oh, not starting anywhere small, are we?
Oh no, we're diving right in.
I love it. Thank you so much for asking and for having me on. I am a public speaker, and I am also the co-founder of a supportive community and resource hub for moms here in the Triangle. I like to start all of my speaking and when I'm on a podcast or talking, I start actually with my childhood because it's kind of an important part of who we all are. For me, I grew up in a trailer park with a single mom, and I had some deep rooted questions around my worth. And that has become an integral part of who I am as a person as I grappled with those feelings and tried to determine how I show up in the world, and trying to prove myself was a big core part of my childhood experience. I wanted to prove to the world, to my family, to everyone around me that I was worthy of the space that I was taking up. And as a teenager, I battled depression, and then at 16 I was in a car accident that by all accounts, I should not have lived through. I hit a utility pole and I was electrocuted by 13,000 volts of electricity. And that moment completely transformed my life. And it was in that moment that I realized the purpose of life, why I'm here, why we are all here. And I quickly went from being this teenager looking out at the world around me and wondering, why am I here? What is the point of all of this? To being a 16-year-old looking around and saying, wow, what a gift each and every day is. And I have this opportunity to wake up every day and do something with my life. I'm not going to waste it. And that was the core memory, the core moment where everything in my life changed. And that's not to say that my life from 16 on has just been this like kumbaya, I love life. I've still battled postpartum anxiety and depression and grief and loss and all the pain and things that we experience as humans. But I've always come back to this deep gratitude and curiosity, because every day is a gift to explore and to discover more about ourselves and how we show up in the world. And I think that is the core piece of what I am trying to bring into the world, is the visibility of that idea.
Wow. You had me in tears, literally. Oh my God, what a powerful story. And it's interesting because you've been getting out and doing more speaking, and I've heard small slivers of your story, but I did not know this was your story. And that, wow, wow. So take us back to before your accident. And you said you were trying to prove your worth. Tell us more about that.
You know, I remember being in elementary school. So I had said I grew up in a trailer park, and the elementary school sat right in between the trailer park, which was over to the left, and the big rich kid houses over to the right. And when we left school every day, those of us that lived in the trailer park would turn to the left, and the kids that lived in the big houses would turn to the right. And I remember one day a girl and I were going back and forth, and she was insulting my mama, and I was getting really upset, and she said, "Why don't you just go home, you trailer trash?" And we were probably in 3rd, 4th grade, but when I tell you, that moment solidified in my mind. We all have those moments, right? That just somebody says something that cuts you so deeply. That is one of those moments. And I think it's because underneath all of it, I was already questioning my worth. I was already looking at the houses and the families with both a mom and a dad, and these loving relationships that I saw on TV, and these loving households and families, and wondering, why was I not enough? Why didn't I have two parents who loved me? Why didn't I have a big house? And you know, at you're a 10, 11-year old, you're not thinking about the realities of why your parents aren't together, which I totally understand and makes sense. I'm looking at it as a kid, not understanding why I don't have these things that these other kids do. And there was something inside of me that just said, no way. I am going to be the best. I am going to prove myself. I am going to be beyond worthy of everybody and everything. And that became my mission. You know, it was straight A's and nobody had to tell me to do my homework. And if I tried something and I wasn't good at it, then I kind of pulled right back because I didn't want to do anything that reset that idea in my head that I wasn't good enough. So, you know, I tried lacrosse and that was not my hand-eye coordination thing. And I immediately, after like a week or two, was like, don't want to do it anymore. And there was this need to prove myself. And it was constantly through picking and choosing things that I could succeed at.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a theme that I totally get your side of the story, but it's what I've found is so many other women deal with this. And even women who grow up on the right side of the street in the big, the ritzy neighborhoods. And so it is something that I've found is pretty much across the board. I think we all struggle with that at some point
I
in our
agree with you
journey.
completely. I run a community for moms. So I speak to hundreds and hundreds of women pretty much on a daily basis. And it is a continuous theme, regardless of what side of the tracks we grew up in, or what our family makeup was, or if we came from a loving home or a more challenging home, or whatever the situation was. Society inundates us with these ideas. And there's this constant message, whether it's from our parents or from some other cultural source, TV, magazines, media, social media these days, that's constantly telling us you have to prove your worth. You have to prove you're good enough. You have to prove that you're better than the person next to you in order to take up the space and have your voice heard. And we're never, ever hearing this message. You are worthy simply because you are here. You are worthy simply because you exist. And that is something after my car accident, I realized. I was like, you know what? I am worthy. I don't have to prove it. I'm just here, and what a gift that is. I like the universe aligned and put me on this earth, and that is a gift, and I'm going to use it. And I think that's the biggest catalyst and the biggest change is that mindset shift that we need to get away from proving ourselves to the world
Hmm.
around us and just acknowledge who we already are, and that's enough. That's more than enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So after your pivot, your big
Yeah.
your accident and your newfound knowing of your self-worth, where did that lead you, Chrissy?
Oh, well, I went off to college and I have to credit some of this as well. I found my lifelong partner in college, actually. I found Noah, he's now my husband, and we fell in love. I was 19. So we've been together 25 years now. And he gave me a sense of safety. And I think that was really important for me. I really needed to go from sort of this world of turmoil to just this really safe attachment and this really safe spot to land. And that was a big piece of it. From that place of safety, I began to spread my wings, so to speak. I started traveling with him. I backpacked through Central America for 6 months, and we spent 3 months in Costa Rica living at the foot of a volcano. We spent a month living on the beach in Tamarindo. We went to Panama and Nicaragua, and I saw things and I talked to people, and I learned about the world beyond this little bubble that I had been living in. And that was amazing. That kind of woke up the travel bug in me. So I've loved traveling ever since then. We moved to North Carolina and I pursued a secondary degree. So I got my master's in teaching and I became a high school psychology teacher, which I loved. I love psychology. I love teenagers. It was a beautiful thing. But if you don't know anything about teaching in the US, it's a very bureaucratic, red tape, not a lot of money kind of environment. So I eventually left teaching. It was actually one day I came home, I was sitting in the carport crying, and Noah came out. It was the end of a work day, and he came out and he said, "It doesn't have to be this way. Like, you don't have to live your life coming home from work crying every day." And at the time, I had been planning a trip with a colleague, a friend of mine. We were going to backpack across Spain on the Camino de Santiago, which is a 500-mile trek across northern Spain. And I was just going to go for 2 weeks. And he said, "Why don't you just quit and go do the whole Camino?" And you don't have to tell me that twice. I was like, okay. So I left my job as a teacher and I spent 2 months with my friend and walked across Spain and had more epiphanies than I can count. And again, I feel like life keeps putting me in these situations. I think it does it to all of us, where it forces you to say, okay, I learned this lesson once and I've slowly moved away from it. I've slowly kind of let society and the world creep back in and take over my life. And I'm once again being reminded of what is important, what matters to me, what my values are, and how I need to show up in the world. And I'm not doing it. And the Camino was that point for me. It again brought me back to my car accident. It again brought me back to the lessons I had learned and how I had moved away from them just in day to day life. And it pointed me back to what's really important in my life. And it was actually on the Camino that I realized I do want to start a family. Noah and I hadn't been sure up to that point. So I came home and I told him I wanted to start a family. And he was like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to need a minute here." I wasn't expecting you to say that when you got home from Spain. Um, but we did. We started a family, and that had its own ups and downs. As I mentioned, postpartum anxiety was very severe for me. And what I thought I was going to be doing after having a child and it wasn't working out. I was personal training. I was in the fitness space. It just wasn't fulfilling me the way I thought it would. I wanted to help people more. I wanted to do more. And that was when I met my business partner, Cindy, and we founded Her Health Collective and now have the community for moms. And it's so funny how in your life, everything sort of stacks up on each other, right? Like teaching, psychology, the travel, meeting different people, how it all kind of builds to where you are and what it is you're doing.
Wow. What a wonderful, what a beautiful and wonderful and layered journey you've had to get to where you were and all the travel. Like I love travel and the Camino. I tell you what, we're gonna have to have coffee and I want to hear about that because that
Would
is
love
on my
that.
list.
Oh, you should do it. You absolutely should do it. I think
Yeah.
everyone should do it.
It's been on my list for a while. I'm like, I'm not just saying one day, but I kind of have an idea when I would like to do it, but it might be a few years, but definitely something to look forward to. So so you got back and decided that you wanted to start a family and dove into that. And then at what point did you meet Cindy and realize, hey, we need to create a resource for moms?
So we were both in the fitness space. We were working with a local organization for moms. Actually, we were both moms and we met and we both had this desire to start a business in some way. And what we realized is though we were at different stages of motherhood, we were both experiencing loneliness, You can be surrounded by people all day and still feel so completely and utterly alone and unseen.
Mm.
And that was how we were feeling. And through working with hundreds of moms, training them, week in and week out, we knew we weren't the only ones. This is a universal feeling for many, many moms. And simultaneously, we saw the overwhelm. We go to Dr. Google and we're so overwhelmed by this expert says this and this expert says this, and there's 20 different treatment plans. And I just wanted to know what this little rash meant. And now all of a sudden I might have cancer, and, like my walls have mold, and who knows, there's all these, and we don't know who to trust. So we really wanted to have this expert resource that has been vetted by your trusted friends that moms could go to from anywhere. And that's really been what we've built. And I coming into this conversation, I was thinking about visibility because I knew that's what we were talking about. And as I mentioned, I'm launching into public speaking and sharing my story on stages now, which is a totally different kind of visibility. And as I thought about it, I realized visibility for me now is easier because I've done it through my business. My business was almost the stepping stone. It was easier for me to be visible through Her Health Collective because it was behind a brand name. I wasn't my name, and it had this larger purpose to it, right? It was Her Health Collective. It was serving, supporting the moms, and it made visibility easier for me when I was first starting out. And let me tell you, I still had those feelings of, oh my gosh, I'm going to put myself on video out on the internet. And, like it feels really weird and awkward. It still does. You still just kind of have to find that inner courage and hit the send button. But what I've realized is it's easier for me to do now because I've had my practice. And I was able to do a lot of my practicing, like we have a podcast, Mama Needs a Moment. And when I listened to some of the very first episodes, I said, and like, and, way more than I do. I'm not perfect, but I'm way better now. And I was able to grapple with that and get better under the umbrella of a brand name. And just when we were talking about visibility and coming in, that really struck me that I've been able to practice under this umbrella that has really helped a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you sharing that because I think it can be so easy for women, for anybody really, to look at somebody like you who's had an established business and all of a sudden you're out on stages and you're winning competitions and you're doing all sorts of big things and think, wow, it must be so easy. She makes it look so easy. But what you're saying, Crissy, is it's stepping stones. And I love that. But I talk about that basically when I'm talking about style, because I think people can get easily overwhelmed. And looking at social media, we see what? The highlight reel, right? We see the polish, the winning, the people don't see when you first start your episode number one or saying all the ums and ahs. And so has been my word. But seeing all the mess ups. But I think what people don't realize is you have to just start messy.
You do. You so do. I think it takes true courage. That's one of the key pillars of my keynote. I talk about courage and how that's been a theme throughout my life. And without the courage to take that messy action, you will never begin. And I truly believe, I think a lot of us believe that you have to be confident to take action. And that is absolutely not true. You build confidence by taking that first step. And then you realize, that wasn't as scary as I thought. I actually did it and I'm still here. I'm still standing. I actually got a mean comment and I'm not like dead on the floor. I made it through that. I think that when we can prove it to ourselves through those tiny little steps, we're able to prove to ourselves that we are worthy. We're able to build that confidence muscle because it is a muscle. It's something you have to work at every day, constantly. I posted something to Facebook. Facebook is my one that I still struggle with because it's my friends.
Mm.
Instagram has been a more public facing persona, LinkedIn, YouTube, all these things. I don't get as caught up hitting the submit button. Facebook is where I'm like, my family is going to see this, my high school friend, and you get kind of stuck in this. It's funny how like being visible to the broad public is okay, but being visible to people feels very different and a little more scary. So I still struggle with that. I still have a little fear, but I've done enough practice where I can just hit the button. I can talk through that internal voice and say, you know what, I'll be okay. I know I can do this.
I appreciate you speaking about that because again, I think a lot of people can see, where when you get out there and you're posting all these things and think, well, it's so easy for her, but they don't realize you felt the fear and you did it anyway. That you may have thought about, what's your sister or your friend or the girl in third grade or what's somebody else going to say? Because it can be scary, no matter how many followers you are, no matter how many times you've done it, especially when you're starting to go against the grain or do something that's maybe a little bit beyond what people know you for. When you're starting to step out, take a bigger leap, there's that,
Yeah,
who do I think I am? What are they gonna say about me?
yeah.
There can be all this stuff that comes up, what they say, what is it? New level, new devil.
I
And I
like that.
think
Yeah,
when you're
yeah.
talking about visibility, it's like, ooh, going to the new next level. And it's not just about who we're being, it's this feeling of what are other people gonna say? What is the response or the reaction gonna be?
Absolutely. You said something that really struck me because it's such a core part of, I think, what I've battled with my whole life. And it was the statement, who do you think you are? And I think so many women battle that. So many women grapple with this internal voice saying, who do you think you are if you put your voice out there? Who do you think you are if you take the mic and stand on a stage? And again, it goes back to childhood messaging and also just society, how it has constantly just inundated us with these ideas that we're supposed to be small and quiet and not, seen but not heard, don't take up space. And there comes a certain point where you have to say, no. You have to put up your hand and say, no, this is my one life. And I have something important to say. And it doesn't have to be from a stage. It doesn't have to be from an Instagram reel. It certainly doesn't have to be from a TikTok video. It can just be a message that you share with your friends and your loved ones. But the truth is, we all have experiences, we all have stories that are worthy of being shared.
Mm.
And it takes courage and bravery to do that. But you're worthy of sharing that message. Your message needs to be heard by people in this world. And I think when we let society kind of push us down and keep our voice quiet, we're missing what we've been put here for. We are missing the purpose of our life. And it's not guaranteed. I mean, I learned firsthand it could be taken from us tomorrow. So, what will that regret be? Will it be that you stayed quiet and didn't share your voice? Or will it be that you stood up and said something? I guarantee you it won't be that you stood up and said something. You will be so glad you stood up and said it.
Mhm.
That will not be a regret that you have. The regret would be I stayed here and I stayed silent and kept my innermost thoughts and my innermost heart just to myself when the world deserves to see that part of me.
Yes, absolutely. Chrissy, was there a moment when you really began to trust your voice?
Hmm.
A moment when you stopped waiting for permission and just really stepped into and owned your perspective?
Yeah, I think it really happened on the Camino.
Mm.
I was walking on the Camino. There was days where we would just kind of walk by ourselves. And my friend, when we went to go on the Camino, she didn't want us to have cell phones. So I did not have my cell phone for 2 months. I didn't have podcasts. I didn't have music. It was just me and my silent thoughts, which we all actually could use a lot more of. And, you know, on this day, I wasn't, there was no talking because I wasn't walking with anybody else. And I was walking through a wheat field. The sun was beating down. I remember the wheat kind of gently blowing in the wind. And I had been grappling with, what do I do with my life when I get back home? I just left teaching. My master's degree was in this. This is what I was supposed to be doing with my life. I had liked it. I thought that's what I was going to do. What am I going to do when I go home? And I just, that's what I do in my head. I was figuring out the next step. I had to know like 10 steps ahead what was going to be right for me. And there was this moment. It wasn't a voice in my head. It was just this inner knowing. I felt it in my bones. And it was 3 words: accept what is. And I understood the meaning of that message on such a deep, visceral level. Accept what is. There is so much I'm trying to control that I'm not meant to control.
Mm.
And to your question about trusting my voice, I would say it was in that moment because there was just this inner knowing of acceptance. There was this inner peace that I felt around, I can't control what's happening in the world around me. I can't control all the pieces and parts. I can't control what other people are going to think or say or do about me, about any, like, that's out of my control. What is in my control is this one present moment, this one spot I'm in this whole great big world, and what I say and what I do and the thoughts that I have in my head. That's what I can control. And, you know, accept what is has become a bit of a mantra in my life. And I really think it's in that moment and with that mentality that I was able to start understanding the power of my voice and not always letting everybody else have their say in how I show up in the world. And I still don't want to claim that I'm perfect in that. I think we're all human and we all ebb and flow. So I want to be clear, after the Camino, I've still had moments where I've fallen and hit rock bottom and had to claw my way back up. I've still had moments where I've been consumed with, oh no, but what if this person thinks that? That's still a part of the human experience and the human journey. I don't think anybody has reached true self-actualization of any, like, that's not the human experience. We're always going to ebb and flow and go up and down. And I think if anyone says otherwise, they're lying. And I stand
Oh,
behind
thousand percent, thousand percent. And I
that.
think I think we all have it in our heads that it's a perfect journey. You know, it's a, I see all these graphs of like the entrepreneurial, what we think it's going to be as an
Yes,
entrepreneur and what it really is. And it's like jagged and up and down and all over the place. And I think the beauty of it is, you know, when we reflect back, like we wouldn't be where we are now without all the muck and all the questioning and all the challenges, because it's when we overcome the challenges that we go to the next level. We prove to ourselves, "Ooh, I can do this." And we discover who we really are and what really matters to us.
absolutely. I mean, when I think back through the most pivotal moments of my life, it is always those moments. And I
Mm.
mean, that's not to say that the beautiful moments aren't also life altering and transforming. They are. But the moments that really knock you down and make you question everything you thought you knew, moving beyond that and stepping out of that space and into the light teaches you so much about who you are inside.
Hmm.
And nobody can ever take that away from you. Nobody can ever take that inner knowing of what you have overcome.
Absolutely. And that inner knowing is so important. And I think what you said too, being on the trail, now not all of us have the luxury of going away for two
Yeah.
months without our cell phone. But what would you recommend to someone who says, you know, I want to get in touch with my inner voice, but I don't even know where to begin with that inner knowing? Like, how do we even start to clear the way to get there?
You know, I think you already kind of said it. I am at a point again where I actually am struggling with this a bit, especially as I'm embarking on launching this new sort of aspect of my business and the speaking career. And I'm permanently attached to my phone. And I am not a technology hater. I'm not going to say, anything negative about that. But since we've had smartphones permanently attached to our being, it is really, really hard to ever be alone with your thoughts.
Mm.
Even if you're putting your Calm app on and listening to a meditation, you're still not alone with your thoughts. How often can we just sit and be? It's real hard for me right now. I mean, still to this day, like I sit on my couch and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit for just a minute. I can't. I pick up a book, I pick up my laptop, I pick up my phone, even just to put music. Like I need something. Our brain has become starved for this constant stimulation. But when we have that constant stimulation, we lose out on that internal state of our mind being able to process things and get creative and sit in boredom for a little bit. Sitting in boredom is so important. That's where creativity emerges. And I would say that if we're looking for internal peace, if we're looking for an inner knowing, you have to start there. You have to start by sitting and just being with yourself. And if you're like me and you can't sit still, it can be on a walk. I actually think a walk in nature is one of the most beautiful places. That's what I experienced on the Camino, because there was a lot of moments where there was really beautiful picturesque views. We were in the trees and the mountains, and there's something about those natural landscapes that can really pull at our inner soul, our inner knowing. And I think setting us up and putting us in those types of locales is important. But even if you can't do that, not to be funny, but go out and touch grass, kick off your sandals, put your feet in the grass, listen to the birds chirping, close your eyes, imagine yourself somewhere, and just let your mind run wild. Because that's when the magic and the beauty, and eventually, if you give it long enough, that inner knowing comes about.
Yes, it's so peaceful. Or even just go like hug a tree, like touch a tree, hang out with the trees, because I keep hearing the trees are very healing. And I think just being in nature, being away from expectations, away from the kids, away from the phone, away from all the things, gives us the space to be present.
Yeah, it's so important and so needed and so hard to come by in today's world. It's so hard to come by, but it's worth fighting for. It's worth finding those little pockets and making it a part of your daily rhythm.
Hmm.
It's so healing.
Absolutely. I want to talk about your Her Health Collective for a minute. I mean, you've created such a beautiful community. I mean, I've had the privilege to be on your podcast and give a little workshop, and the women there just they seem so supportive. It's just like a different vibe. Why do you think that being seen and supported by other women is so healing, and why do you think that there's such a gap right now?
Oh, such a good question. I think that we grew up in a time where there was this message that spaces designed for women is going to be catty and cutthroat and vicious and backtalking, and there's this messaging that that's how women's spaces are. And for sure that can happen in women's spaces, but the vast majority of women I've met are not walking into spaces looking for that. The vast majority of women I've met are walking into spaces starved for an opportunity to show up fully as themselves and be seen for who they are and accepted. And the vast majority of women are willing to do that for other women.
Mm.
We have just created all these spaces where we have to show up presenting ourselves in a certain way. And we never get to that authentic underlayer. We feel that we have to show up spine straight, dressed a certain way, hair a certain way, matching everybody else in the room. And when we designed her health collective, it was very specific. We were curating a space for moms so that they could show up as they are, and that everyone would know you are accepted exactly as you are. And it doesn't matter what your hair looks like, what you're wearing, how you show up. There's a vibe that can be created and culture, but it does take work. It takes a constant reminding and reframing of the kind of space we are building together. And I think that if you are in a space in your life where you're starved for that and you haven't been able to find that, there's power in the idea of creating those spaces yourself. And it doesn't have to be a community with hundreds of moms and hundreds of experts. It can be you seeking out three or four. I actually think there's even more magic in that, finding three or four other women who have the same values and beliefs and who say, you know what? Yes, I accept you exactly as you are. There is true magic in finding that and building that. And if you haven't found that yet, I would challenge you to start seeking it out and build it yourself. Have a dinner party. Invite those few women that you've met in random spots and said, there's something about her. I like her. Let me have her over for dinner, and have three or four and see how the vibe mixes. It might go beautiful, it might not. You might realize two of those people are your people and two are not. And it's an experiment. And another thing I've realized is the seasonality of relationships. I think we get so attached to, I have to find my one person, and my one person is going to be my one person forever. And I've found that to be very rare, very, very rare. If you have that, you're very lucky. For most of us, there's a seasonality to the relationships in our lives, and that's okay. There can be a season where someone is really close to you and they come to your dinner parties and they come to your child's gymnastics meets, and and then that relationship can cool a little bit. And it doesn't mean that there's any less love between you. It just means the seasons of your lives aren't meshing the same anymore. And I think if
Mhm.
we get into relationships understanding that nuance and that truth, and have that temper our expectations a little bit, we will be much happier than
Absolutely.
beating ourselves up all the time.
Yeah. I remember reading Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love, and she talks about, I mean, I'm paraphrasing her words, but essentially she talks about how people come into our lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And
Yeah.
hearing that, and I think, exactly what you said, it lets us off the hook. It lets us say it's okay if someone's going to flow into my life because especially as moms, like we're at very different phases in our lives. And I'm a new empty nester, and to I do have friends who have small children, but I understand that their schedules are going to be different than mine are, and it's just a different time of our lives. So I think just really understanding and allowing it. And like you said, accept what is.
Yeah.
Accept what is, then that, this person's here now, and if she's not, it doesn't mean anything went wrong. I think we as women love to analyze things,
Oh,
overanalyze things,
guilty.
especially.
Guilty. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So you brought up something a few minutes ago. You brought up wearing what you wear, and I want to talk about style for just a few minutes. So I know when I was on your podcast, I had you and Cindy do you take the Style Finder ID assessment. And do you remember what your Style Finder ID was?
I can pull it up here. So, yes, I have it in front of me. And this is so true. I took this and I looked at the results and I was like, yeah, spot on. So, I am 80% primary sporty, and I am 20% secondary natural. And then my supporting or influence is whimsical. And when I read this, it reads 100% true. Dynamic, confident, practical. I crave movement, simplicity, clothes that keep up with my pace. Yes, I used to be a fitness instructor. I'm a busy mom. I've been running coaches. I run marathon. Like I am a sporty, athletic person. Athletics are important to me. The natural, relaxed, and approachable comfort is key. Your vibe is grounded, genuine, and effortlessly authentic. If I was like writing something about myself and how I wanted to appear to the world, that's exactly what I would say. So, like, your style finder ID is so spot on. But then the piece that I also really loved was the whimsical influence, because that's so true.
Mhm.
Like, and also when you scroll down and it where the shadow side, like things that I run into and struggle with, looking boring, looking frumpy in a rut, lack of style, hiding your shape. Yes, that's 100% it. But what I love about the whimsical piece is the spark of fun and creativity. That has always been important to me. I have always wanted to, weave that in. And I think what I've realized, I am approaching 42, and as I'm in my 40s, I've realized I don't want to chase trends anymore. I want to be who I am and show up authentically. And I also want to have fun experimenting with things that feel like me. Like, I remember growing up, I was always sort of drawn to a more sporty look. I always was. But I also loved sort of bohemian vibes. I loved the little, little thing. And when I look at women, I'm like, oh, I really love that. But that doesn't fit my style.
Mhm.
I've kind of realized I don't agree with that anymore. I don't think that I have one style. I think I see something I like and I want to figure out how I can incorporate that into, because I like it. So why not wear it? And that's sort of where I've come to be today. And that's been a very long, like, process to being there. And I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's where I'm at.
Well, what the right answer is what's true for you. So that's, but it was interesting because the description, the warm and the approachable, like that's totally who you are. That is you to a T. And I think it just really, it captured your essence in a beautiful way. And I love that you've really stepped into wearing some playful colors. I think that's kind of the whimsical side. It's like because it's just that little edge. It's the unexpected, the playfulness, the fun.
Yeah, I think it's been really fun to explore. Like, again, I used to get very stuck on, I really like that, but that's not my style. And I just don't feel that way anymore. Like, I just feel this sort of freedom in wanting to experiment with things. Now, that being said, I have always for years now been in a space where I am a mom. I'm working from home. Even my business and networking, I'm representing my company, Her Health Collective, which has like a fitness component, mom community. Like, it's always been very laid back. And now, as I step into public speaking, there are certain moments where I'm stepping onto stages, perhaps in a corporate space, and I do need to sort of think through that. So, that being said, I probably just need to reach out to you, and you're going to help me figure that piece of my life out, because I don't have that figured out yet.
Oh, I would be happy to. You'd be so much fun to work with.
Well, thank you.
That would be great. But I think, just to go back to what you said a few minutes ago about when you see something, you're not sure if it's your style. What I've learned over the years, and it's so funny. I've been a style coach for almost 20 years, and I used to say, "Oh, there's do this," and there were all the rules. And now I'm like, we're in the new era. We're in the era of embodiment, embodying ourselves, our style, like really owning who we are through our style. And it's not performative. It's not about what we should wear. And what I've seen is that a lot of women get confused. And we get confused because we see, oh, she looks great. Like when you have on a beautiful outfit and other people can easily look at you and say, oh my gosh, she looks great. I need to look like that if I'm
Hmm.
going to be a speaker, or if I'm going to. But I think the magic happens when you say, oh, she looks fantastic. And the question that you said you're asking is, what can I take from that? How can I make that my own?
Yeah.
And
I
so
think, sorry,
so
go ahead.
I'll just add one piece. When we go from saying, yes, I can wear that absolutely the way it is, or no, I can't, if we get out of the black and white thinking and ask ourselves, how can I? That
Mhm.
really leads us to a different conclusion. Then it's about experimentation and finding our style. And maybe you do have a little bit of bohemian, and maybe you do have a little bit of, something else. But it's the experimentation. Dip your toe in the water and ask yourself, how does this feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that experimentation piece can be so fun too if you just allow it, if you just let it. And I feel like something else I've realized over these recent years is that I don't know that I want to have one look. I don't like, I feel like I've always had kind of been told like is how you show up and this is who you are. And I feel like I have different, I don't want to sound, I was gonna say I feel like I have different personalities, but I mean, we all show up to different spaces differently, right? Like I'm gonna show up to my daughter's gymnastics meet differently than I'm going to show up to a networking event differently than I am if I'm speaking on stage. And it's not that I want to change who I am, but I want to play up different parts of my personality in those different contexts. And I think you can do that through the clothing that you wear.
Mhm.
And another thing I've realized, and you will love this, the clothing that I choose to put on can really impact my confidence when I step into the room. And it's not that I'm wearing clothes to make me confident. It's more just that I'm picking things that speak to me so that I feel like I'm stepping more fully into myself as I step into these rooms. And there's power in that. And another thing that I've also realized, I had my color, and you mentioned the colors, I had my color analysis and found out I'm a deep winter. And that's really powerful too, because I've started to realize when I look in the mirror, like, oh, wow, that really does make me look washed out. And that really does make my eyes pop. And it's kind of cool to have that little tool there. That's just so simple and easy now. Another thing is body shape. You know, I think as women, we should wear whatever we want and whatever we are comfortable in. And I fully stand behind that. And I also realize that, you know, someone that loves sporty comfort type, natural type clothing, through different phases of my life with different body issues, I perceived body issues, let me clarify and say, I would find myself drawn to certain clothing that I felt hid certain parts of my body. And when I look back, while it made me comfortable in the moment, because I was, for me, it was my stomach. I think it often is for a lot of women, especially after having a child. I was hiding my stomach. But also in doing that, it goes back to my style finder ID. I was leaning into this kind of frumpiness, and it wasn't even regardless of what I looked like, it was a feeling. I was feeling frumpy even though I was also comfortable. But then also there's the question, are you really comfortable, because you're showing up feeling sort of frumpy, you know, like there's sort of that double-edged sword there. So learning about my body shape and how to dress for my body shape was also really powerful. I have very broad swimmer shoulders, and
Same.
yeah, so like just learning tips and tricks about that was also really eye-opening. Like I loved certain dresses and I put them on, and because of how the shoulders were, it really did make me look a lot bigger up top. And that's okay. That's fine if that's how I want to show up, or you know, I really love the dress, great. But also just kind of having those awareness around those things has been really helpful as I select things for things like public speaking, where I want to
Yeah.
show up in a certain way.
Absolutely. I think style, it's interesting because I've taught style. I've been in the style industry for almost 40 years and for a very long time. And I've been a style coach for almost 20. And it just what I like to think that what I teach, it gives you a guideline. Because again, there are no rules. But if there are no rules, there's no starting point. So what I like to do is
Yeah.
give clients a framework. And I think what you're doing, you know your style. Those are the three keys to style. Know your style, know your best colors, know your body type. Once you know those, like that's your foundation. And then you can say, ooh, do I like this flowy skirt? Do I like these skinny jeans? Do I like that? Then you can kind of plug it into what you know is true for you. And then just ask yourself, how does it feel? Do I like it? Does it feel like
Yeah.
me? So it really can make a difference. But I feel like if we're just off-roading, if we're just totally going off-road, which can be very overwhelming. Like, where do you start?
No,
So,
that's very true. That's very true.
yes. Yeah. Chrissy, for the woman that's listening right now, that maybe she's listening and she's inspired, she's like, oh, you're stepping out, you're speaking on stages, you've got this great community. What advice would you give to somebody who has big aspirations, but is caught up in the fear of taking the first step?
Two things. The first I will say is surround yourself with people who are already doing it. Find a community, a group of people, a person that you admire that's already doing it. Follow them, reach out to them. So many people are open if you reach out to them in DMs and just say, hey, I saw you do this and I really admire it. Would you be open to a virtual coffee or a real coffee? And what I have found is when I surround myself with people who are 1, 2, 3, 10 steps ahead of me, it pushes me and pulls me so much quicker than if I was just sitting at home navigating it myself. So who you surround yourself with matters. So pick those relationships and pursue them and make that happen. And then the second piece feels like a little bit of a cop out answer because you asked me what should a person do if they feel like they can't take that first step? And my answer is to take a first step, but I mean that in the smallest, most bite sized of
Little baby
ways.
steps.
Yeah. But again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about action building confidence. And if you
Mhm.
take that first tiny little bite sized step, promise yourself you're going to work on this for 15 minutes every day. And for 15 minutes, you do something, you take some tiny action forward. And eventually, those tiny actions forward compound and they help build that confidence inside of you. And I think it's so important to not get bogged down by making something perfect or like take that messy action, to use your words. Take that first messy step and just do it and look at them as tiny stepping stones.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've ever heard, there's a Japanese principle, it's called Kaizen. And it's just one small step,
Yeah.
one small step. And
Yeah.
I've taught that for years with style, but I think it's true for anything. And that's exactly what you're saying is take one small step. And then it boosts your confidence. You're like, hey, I can do this. And then one more and one more. And then it compounds. And pretty soon you're like, oh my gosh, why did I ever think I couldn't do it?
Yeah. And can I just finish with one last thought? Because I think this is really important and it goes back to my deepest core beliefs and really what I learned from my car accident. Nothing is guaranteed.
Mm.
Tomorrow might not come. So today, if it was your final day, I guarantee you would not regret making the post, going in for the ask, doing that one scary thing. In fact, I think you would be really proud of yourself for having done it. So
Mhm.
I would encourage anyone kind of standing on that precipice to think about the fact that nothing tomorrow is guaranteed. So why not go for it? Why not give it a shot?
Why not? I actually made a really big ask yesterday. And
Yeah.
I had a dream and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do this. And I reached out with zero expectations, walked away. My husband and I went on a little coffee date, came back, checked my email. He had not only responded, but I have a call booked. I'm like, all right,
Yes,
all right. Like,
congratulations. Good for
thank
you.
you.
I'm
But
excited to hear more whenever
yeah.
it
Oh,
comes
well,
out.
yeah. As soon as I have something to share, I'll definitely
Yes,
be sharing. But
absolutely.
I think that we get in our heads so much and we second guess ourselves and don't even give ourselves the opportunity to be told no, which reminded my husband, I said, even if I get a no never means no. It just means not yet.
Yes,
Not
yes.
yet.
Oh, I love it.
So, like, what do you have to lose? Nothing. But we miss, what is it? You miss 100% of the chances that you don't take.
Absolutely.
So great advice. Chrissy, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Any other parting words you'd like to leave us with?
I think that at the end of the day, this is our one beautiful gift. And, if we can accept the things that we have control over and then keep taking those tiny steps forward, we're going to realize that every day really is a big, beautiful gift. And, we'll be able to appreciate those moments more and more.
Absolutely. So good. So good. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at herhealthcollective.com or coming very soon, like within a couple weeks. Actually, by the time this goes live, it should hopefully be live. CrissyFishbane.com will be coming soon.
And that's Chrissy with a CR.
Thank you. Yes, I should get used
Yes.
to saying that. Yes.
Yes, yes. And I'll make sure and drop all those links in the show notes. So come on over and connect with Chrissy. And Chrissy, thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful.
Oh, thank you. It was such a treat to be with you.